Turn 1 Soul Ring.
A little thing just came up, said like, your MIDI isn't working. I don't care because the it's recognizing this microphone, and the little sound bars are booping and beeping as I speak right now. So
It's a technical term.
It's good. Yeah, booping and beeping is the technical term. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, as much as I'd love to talk about the weather, I think we're just going to get right into it today because we don't have a lot of time. So, hello and welcome to another episode of Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we are going to be starting our Zendikar set review. As with all our set reviews, we'll give some background information on this set. We'll also be talking about the cards that we think could make a splash in the various formats that we play, which I think between the three of us, it's every format except like Legacy and Vintage. But we have been dipping our toe into that in the draft version, limited version. Anyways, we'll try to get this in the can in a reasonable amount of time, but this might be a two-parter. So, obviously, you probably already know that when you clicked on it, because if it says part 1, then it's a two-parter. We'll be going through the cards in Wooburg order. Then we'll finish off with gold and colorless cards, including lands. But before we get to any of that, Eric, how can listeners get in touch with us?
People can find us over on Instagram at Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast. We also have a Gmail account, Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on the YouTubes, Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast. Find us over there.
Oh, and we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Turn 1 Soul Ring. Check out our reward tiers. And if you think we deserve some money, just get crazy with it. See what happens. So let's go over some of the set's details. Zendikar Rising is the 85th Magic expansion and will be released on September 25th of this year, 2020. And it contains 280 cards, so not the biggest set, but also not the smallest set. The themes and mechanics of the set are, of course, lands, class tribal, modal, and double-faced cards. And the set has 2 returning keywords, Kicker, which I know Riley is very excited for.
Oh, yeah.
And Landfall, as well as a new keyword, Party. Kicker is just an additional cost on a card that gives you an additional benefit if you pay the kicker cost when you cast the spell, and Landfall is just an effect that you get from a card when a land enters the battlefield under your control. And as for Party, your party consists of up to one of each of 4 classes, which are Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. You control a full party if you control 4 creatures with all of these creature types among them. Some cards have bonuses based on the number of creatures in your party, and some cards have bonuses for having a full party. This set also has 2 commander decks being released with it, which at the time of this recording, we just got the full deck list late yesterday, early today, and those will be replacing the Planeswalker decks, and we'll be reviewing those in the next couple of weeks. One last thing about this set is the introduction of a new modal or double-faced cards. Zendikar being being one of the sets that, or the set that is most closely related with lands. All the double-faced cards in this set have one side that is a land. So I think there's 2 uncommon cycles in each color. Of one side is a different card type and the other side is a land, and then there's a rare cycle and then there's a mythic cycle. And what is so interesting about these double-faced cards is that instead of transforming when they're on the battlefield, you get to choose which side of the card you want to play it as. So, if it's, say, you play it as a land, or if it's a land and a different permanent type on the other side, and it gets bounced back to your hand, then you could use it again. Or if you bounce it back to your own hand, you could get that added value from it potentially. So, we're going to be talking about a few of the double-faced cards in our review, so let's just get started. We are going to start with white, as usual, and we are starting off with Angel of Destiny. Angel of Destiny is 3 white for a creature. Angel Cleric 2/6. It has flying double strike. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game.
Just the lose the game clause. Hoo boy.
Yeah, and I'm always a big fan of these like alternate win condition kind of cards. Even though it's a alternate lose the game kind of card, but in 1v1, opponent losing the game is a win for you. But I really like, I'm thinking about this for Commander, and like with multiple combat steps, you'll be able to eliminate multiple opponents from the game. And I also really like the political aspect of this card in Commander. You and an opponent could make a deal to let some of your creatures through so that both of you can gain some life. If you've both been hemorrhaging, or if you're both trying to make a push against another much stronger player, like in the case of if we're playing Commander with Riley, like that can come up a lot. So I think I think this is a super fun Commander card.
Well, I mean, notably, the creatures that are dealing damage, it's break even, right, for that opponent. So they're not getting anything out of the exchange other than their life total isn't changing for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's...
Of course, I mean, it is a triggered ability. So if you do enough damage to get them below 0, then they're dead, and the triggered ability just doesn't resolve for them. Yeah, it's not like lifelink in this case.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if you have the second ability goes off, then that player's just going to lose the game. So
yeah, they did.
Yeah, it seems pretty good for like a life gain, Commander style deck. So keep your eyes open.
Oh yeah.
All right, so the next card we have here is Arkhan of Ameria. It's 2 and a white for a 2/3 Arkhan with flying. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped.
Hello, Stacks.
Absolutely,
yeah, good old hate bear.
Yeah, and it is a 2/3 flyer, so in the early game it can chip through for a little bit of damage here and there in a 4-player pod. And yeah, it obviously slows down your opponents. I think in like limited though, this isn't ideal. I think like a 3-mana 2/3 with flying is good, but I think the non-basic lands clause isn't really going to come up too often.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be quite a few non-basic lands running around with the modal double-faced cards, but most of those lands already enter tapped. So
Yeah,
it's not going to make much of a difference in this case. But in limited, you said it, like a 2/3 flyer for 3 is still a good creature. And slowing the game down, I mean, it really depends on your strategy. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a good thing for you. If you're like a beatdown deck and you want to be double spelling, like this might slow you down more than you want to.
Oh, I want to be double spelling.
Yeah.
Okay, the next card we have here is Archpriest of Iona. It's 1 white for a star 2 human cleric. Archpriest of Iona's power is equal to the number of creatures in your party. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. Can target itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Live the party dream.
Just feel for like the getting a full party, and then the benefit of it isn't really very much. We need to have like 4 creatures of different types out.
Yeah, and it's like, what's sort of the average number of party members are you gonna get in a game? Because like I think this party mechanic is gonna be strongest in limited. I really don't know if it's gonna see a lot of standard play. So in limited, what's the average party number that you'll get?
Like, I think a lot of the time you're going to be casting this, as like a 1-mana 2/2,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's still a good card.
It's a good rate.
No doubt.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily put all the weight on the second ability, the second triggered ability, but I think as a 1-mana 2/2 or a 1-mana 3/2, this is going to pull its weight.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I mean, it's going to be a matter of how well the party mechanic synergizes with the games that you're playing, because I could imagine having another creature for the most part, but I can also imagine that getting a full party and keeping a full party is going to be challenging.
Super challenging.
Yeah, definitely. So next card we have here is our first double-faced card. It's Ameria's Call, which is 4 white for a sorcery. Create 2 4/4 white angel warrior creature tokens with flying. Non-angel creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. And on the flip side, we have Ameria Shattered Skyclave. It's a land. As Ameria Shattered Skyclave enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. So like all these, each land from this mythic cycle, you can bolt yourself and it won't enter the battlefield tapped. Too bad we can't call these the bolt lands.
Just to clarify, it does say gain indestructible until your next turn.
Until your next turn, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so
Spicy.
during your whole opponent's turn as well, all your creatures are indestructible, minus your angels.
Oh. Wow, this card just went up in my evaluations for Commander.
Because you got a whole turn cycle of your stuff being indestructible.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it definitely is. With these cards, because you played it as a sorcery and it goes to your graveyard, if you played like a Splendid Reclamation, or if you had like a Ramanap Excavator or a Crucible of Worlds, can you play the land side from your graveyard?
No, not in that scenario, because it's only going to see the front face of the card. So if you're like searching out a land from your deck, you're only going to see the front face. If you're searching out or like targeting a land in your graveyard, it's only going to see the front face.
Oh, okay.
So it won't see that.
I see.
But if you're able to play lands from your graveyard, or play lands from your library, as far as I understand, you should be able to have the option of, like for example, like a Courser of Crufix. You're
Right.
playing with the top card of your library revealed. You can play lands from the top of your library. You should be able to play the land tap.
So then, like
Makes
Ramanap
sense.
Excavator, you can play a land from your graveyard.
Yep,
Perfect. Right on.
that's how I understand it.
Well, that's what we'll go with, and we won't look anything up. So the next card we have here is Felidar Retreat. It's 3 and a white for an enchantment. It has landfall. When landfall triggers, you choose one. Create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Love the art on this card. That little like Felidar kitty flying around on that rock. That's fun.
Yeah, it's great. I also think this card is like really powerful for the 4 mana that you're getting.
Oh yeah.
All of your lands are
yeah.
either a 2/2 or then all your creatures get a 1/1 counter.
Yeah, and it's a counter
that
that's
1/1 counter.
makes it so good. Yeah, you're gonna get way more than like 4 mana worth of like value out of this card if you cast it early enough. This certainly isn't something you want to top deck, but yeah, it does hold a lot of value in the right deck for sure.
This just turns all of your lands into threats.
Yeah.
Just from then on forward. Like I can just imagine playing a land, getting a 2/2, next turn, getting another 2/2, then like putting some counters on them, and from there like establishing a board state, because of course it's landfall. You don't have to invest any mana into it. You just got to play a land.
Yeah, so you're just getting this
card
board
seems
state
fantastic.
from playing lands.
And now with these, this will come up in the rest of our set review, but with these double-faced cards that lower the opportunity cost of putting those cards in our decks, because hey, sometimes if you don't want to cast, Emiria's Call, you have a land. So it's the same thing here. It's like you can run more lands in your decks or fewer lands in your decks, whatever you need, because you have that option.
Oh man, not to get too meta with it, but I was really disappointed to see the Commander deck list not running this and instead running like the previous iteration.
Right.
The one that gives landfall +1/+1 until end of turn instead of +1/+1 counter, especially since that deck seems to be based around landfall and counters.
Yeah.
Like, just what a flavor fail.
Yeah, you texted us earlier and you said that it felt like a slap in the face.
Yeah, well, it does. It's like, wow, you print this amazing rare and you don't even showcase it in your brand new Commander Precon. It doesn't make any sense.
You gotta buy some
that's-
booster packs.
That's kind of, yeah, right? That's kind of par for the course, though. Like, that's what they did with Ikoria. You know, like, we had complaints about that, and, you know, I'm sure we're going to find that with this, and probably Commander Legends. So it sort of like lets them, you know, because they said that they were only going to, the whole decks were going to be reprints, but because they're releasing them with sets, it's almost like they have more latitude to not put the new set cards in them because the set's being released with it. So you should be buying all the products. So you shouldn't even worry that the good reprints aren't in these commander decks because you're pre-ordering, you know, a box of everything. So, you know, what's the problem?
Oh boy.
Oh, that's Papa Hasbro for you. Okay, next card here is Journey to Oblivion. It's 4 and a white for an enchantment. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. When Journey to Oblivion enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Journey to Oblivion leaves the battlefield. Love the art in this card as well.
Yeah, this is great art. I love it.
It's like the Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah.
Do you guys get it, though? Journey to Nowhere, Oblivion Ring?
I had not made that connection. That's pretty good.
Get it?
Yeah.
Well, that seems obvious
This card
now.
seems fun. Like in Limited, I think this will be pretty solid. Even if you only have one creature type, like 4 mana for this kind of effect, we've seen that in previous Limited sets before, and it's been a good effect.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall, if you can get 2 and turn this into Oblivion Ring, then it's great. Being able to deal with almost any permanent is fantastic.
Well, we even also saw in a previous standard recently, it was a 4 mana card that did this. It also made it so that your opponent can't cast spells with the same name as it. But that card was ran like in the current standard. And this card kind of does the same thing, but it has a possibility of becoming cheaper. So I think this card is actually going to see a lot of play. It's obviously going to be really good limited, but I think it's also going to be in standard as well, because getting rid of any non-land permanent is a really powerful ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how easy it is to like build a party in both limited and standard. I mean, obviously it's probably going to be a little easier in standard because it's a constructed deck, but yeah, I really don't know how to like value this mechanic just yet. So the next card we have here is Maul of the Sky Claves. It's 2 and a white for an artifact equipment. When Maul of the Sky Claves enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and first strike, and it has an equip cost of 2 white. So I think this card is absolutely fantastic. A lot of the equipments in this set do attach to a creature when they enter the battlefield, which is fantastic. But even the cost of like 2 white to get that effect is pretty good. I'm thinking about this in SRAM Senior Edificer, a Voltron deck, and normally 3 CMC is like too high to consider for an equipment in that deck unless it does something really huge. But the fact that you just, you know, if you have SRAM on the battlefield, you cast this, you get to draw a card, it enters the battlefield, it attaches to SRAM, and now he has an evasive, is, you know, like 2 evasive abilities, and he's 4/4. Like that's pretty good. So I like this card a lot.
Yeah, all of the equipment in this set have this ability where they attach themselves when they enter the battlefield. But it is a pretty strong piece of equipment. I was thinking about rebuilding my Balan Wandering Knight deck because that deck was always something that I wanted to work, but it never quite got there because, you know, it's mono white and SRAM is definitely a better option.
I run Balan in SRAM as a secondary commander if SRAM gets too expensive.
Yeah, for sure. But just the fact that it gives first strike and Balan, you know, gets double striked when he's double equipped, I was a little bit just like, Maybe not. I don't know if the +2/+2 and flying's worth it. But yeah, I could definitely see it in SRAM.
Yeah. Okay.
The way I like to look at these cards is that it's kind of like an aura that you can recast.
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, because no matter what, you're probably equipping this to a creature right away, so...
Yeah, ideally, you're not playing this on turn 3 on an empty board.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yikes.
It's going to cost you more.
Yeah, 7 mana. So the next card we have here is Skyclave Apparition. It's 1 white for a 2/2 core spirit. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. It's very specific. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card.
This is a great card.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Banishing Priest. Obviously, there's a few more caveats for what you can exile. But just the fact that it doesn't give the creature back, it just gives a token version of that creature with no enter the battlefield ability, I think is really, really strong.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it is like, at least it's still a non-land permanent, non-token as well, but you can hit many things with this. And
for sure.
They're not getting it back. That's the big thing.
Okay, next up we have Squad Commander. 3 and a white for a 3/3 core wizard. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token for each creature in your party. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn.
So at the least, this is like a 4 power for 4 mana.
It'll be nice and limited. Obviously supports the party mechanic, but again, it's really a question of like how easy will it be to enable a full party?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of friends, so sometimes it's hard for me to have a full party. No, I kid. And also in this set, there is a warrior theme, so like this also lends itself to that deck as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's going to slow down the format because people are going to try and like keep their creatures to like get a full party and stuff, so people like won't be attacking and things like that, which you usually see. And so it'll be interesting to see how much of that goes on.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I think there will be a lot of that, like in the way that, like War of the Spark was a grindy format because people were throwing their damage at planeswalkers instead of players. I think that, people to get the bonus from a full party, they won't attack him. It for those that archetype is probably going to be more grindy, but if it's not playable, then, it just won't see play. It's like in Ixalan when you tried to get Merfolk to work and it just didn't work.
I had it work once.
I think there was one period of time where there was a Merfolk deck, but...
Okay, next up we have Tazri, Beacon of Unity. She is 4 and a white for a 4/6 legendary creature, human warrior. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And she has an activated ability. It's hybrid. How do you say this? It's
like two-brid.
Yeah. So it's hybrid 2 blue, hybrid 2 black, hybrid 2 red, and hybrid 2 green. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or ally cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And, if you had enough mana, you could just keep activating this ability. Just keep digging.
Yeah, I mean, if you have infinite mana with all the ways to combo with Basalt Monolith these days, you could just get your entire party deck on the battlefield.
There you go.
This is our party commander.
Yeah. I do have a little bit of a beef with her though. I understand that Tazri historically has been an ally commander because there's a printing of her that's focused around allies.
Yep.
I really don't know why they had to put in the ally clause in her ability. If you wanted to run a Tazri ally build, you already have a pretty strong option out there from like the Oath of the Gatewatch. I think it was Oath of the Gatewatch that she was printed in.
Yeah. Well, like that's a good point, but maybe they were
giving
just
you more options.
throwing the commander players that like Tazri and like allies a bone. Just like, okay, maybe I'll give this a try. I don't know, but it does seem a little out of place. Next up, we have. Oh, okay. We're moving on to blue. Sorry, guys. That was a commander card. Whoopsies. Next up, we have Cherix, the Raging Isle. It's 2 blue for a legendary creature, Leviathan Crab. I wonder what the back end looks like. It's a 0/17. Spells your opponent's cast that target Cherix, the Raging Isle, costs 2 more to cast, and you can pay 3. Cherix gets +X -X until end of turn, where X is the number of islands you control. Pretty cool. 0/17.
That is a big butt.
He's a 0/17.
Yeah. I think that might be a
there was
first.
a fling. If only there was a fling that counted toughness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like a Doran style fling.
Yeah. I feel like anyone who's running a Butts deck, though, is rejoicing with this.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you have an Arcades deck or something, like this creature is a bomb. You're like, oh, I get to attack for 17 for 4 mana? Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, too bad High Alert is rotating. Does High Alert, does it apply to all your creatures or just to defenders?
Arcades only cares about creatures with Defender.
Oh, and
okay.
I think High Alert is just the defense one.
Yeah, each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And I run High Alert in Arcades and a few other redundancies like that do what Arcades does. And High Alert's like the best one, but yeah, this works this works great with High Alert.
Man, I used to run Tetsuko Umezawa High Alert deck with a bunch of like 1 power creatures, but she also cares about 0 power creatures.
Yeah.
So
I run she's in my Arcades deck. Yeah.
Yeah, you could like Tetsuko High Alert, then this big boy, just like punch your opponent in the face for 17.
Yeah. Get him.
Be great.
Seems good.
Yeah, run that in Historic.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Confounding Conundrum. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. When Confounding Conundrum enters the battlefield, draw a card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. I like that it replaces itself. That's for sure.
Just here for the cantrips?
Honestly, I think drawing cards is my favorite thing to do in the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I put it on the list. I thought this was a kind of an interesting space that Wizards is testing the waters in, because of course, you go onto Twitter and you see all this backlash about mass land destruction and people talking about ways that ramp decks can be addressed without mass land destruction. And I think this might be a tool in the tool belt to consider if that is something in your meta that is out of control and you don't have any means of addressing it without using mass land destruction or something of a similar sort. Then it might be something worth testing at the very least to see if it works.
Absolutely, and I agree. I think this is a really great meta card. Where if you have someone in or a couple of players in your meta that are just dedicated lands decks, this card is gonna do a lot of work. And I guess mass land destruction is a bummer, but I think I think if you have to employ that strategy against people in your meta and they just keep pushing for a lands deck, then yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a better option. It's just in my experience, when you openly push back against someone's strategy or even build a deck to just deal with that deck, especially in Commander, that person will tend to change their strategy or even change their deck. But Riley and I also talked about this card in Tuvasa, just because with Tuvasa on the battlefield, it's a double cantrip. and then the rest of it is just gravy if you do have green players trying to put extra lands onto the battlefield, and they will because that's like their thing.
Yeah. And you can even combine it with symmetrical effects. Like I'm thinking, one of my favorite pet cards is Veteran Explorer, or cards like New Horizons, where I think that's the right card, New Horizons. It's like green and an X for each player to search up X basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. And you can do like these weird effects where you think it's symmetrical, but I'd like to see the rules interaction for Confounding Conundrum, because I wonder if the lands, since they enter simultaneously, if they all see each other entering at the same time. So if all of them have to get bounced back to the hand, or if it's just like all but one.
Oh, there can only be one. That's why they call it Highlander. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Yeah, that's that is an interesting question, to be sure. All right. Let's move on to the next card. I really like this card. It's Deliberate. It's 1 and a blue for an instant. Scry 2, then draw a card. This, like, in a Spellslinger deck, this is fantastic. It's instant speed. It's just, I love it. I can't see all that the future holds, but I can keep us one step ahead of death. And, at the end of the day, isn't that what survival's all about?
Yeah, I love this card. It's a great common.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I think, Kevin, this is the Confounding Conundrum that that you were looking for.
Yeah, I think you're right. Next up, we have, it's another flip card, Glasspool Mimic. It's 2 and a blue for a 0/0 Spellshaper Rogue. You may have Glasspool Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except it's a Shapeshifter Rogue in addition to its other types. And the other side is Glasspool Shore. Glasspool Shore enters the battlefield tapped, and you can add a blue to your mana pool.
Yeah, so like obviously in Commander we always like having some sort of redundancy because it's a singleton format, and so this is another card that just gives us a way to copy a creature that we have if we have some sort of combo, or if we just have like really good creatures. But if we are stuck in a position where we don't really have anything, we can always just use it as a land.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like most about this card is the fact that, of course, it's looking at creatures you control. So sometimes, after a board wipe, if this is stranded in your hand, fortunately, you can still use it as a land drop if it comes down to it. So having that extra bit of flexibility is pretty huge.
After like an Apocalypse style board wipe, which also destroys all the lands.
Also, the flavor text is great, and the art on the land part is also really cool.
Oh yeah,
because it has his reflection, like, or her.
Yeah, I think it could. It could go either way.
Oh, it's a reflection of like a group of people.
Is it a group, or is it the same person just like walking up and
like multiple times?
Yeah, Riley, come on, expand your mind, dude.
Oh yeah, that's next level.
I think it's Ash and Maul.
There you go. I think you're right. Okay, the next card here is Inscription of Insight. It's 3 and a blue for a sorcery. It has Kicker for 2 and 2 blue. Choose one. If this spell was kicked, choose any number instead. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Target player creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the number of cards in their hand.
I find this card quite insightful. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. It is. I think even just for the 4 mana, a couple of these modes are pretty damn good for 4 mana.
Like scry 2, draw 2 cards for 4. Like that's a standard thing. Like that's good. And then like especially in limited, being able to return 2 creatures to their owner's hands for 4 mana is pretty huge.
Pretty good. Hopefully they don't have ETBs.
Like I would have loved to have seen this at instant speed.
Yeah,
totally.
It's weird because I think every color. Well, I don't know if red got one, but like I know black and green have their own inscription cards. And green is the only one I recall that is at instant speed, which is a little bit weird.
Well, green needs green needs help. Like green hasn't been doing well the last few sets, so it kind of makes sense that they want to
they're not that
throw
powerful.
it a bone.
Give them a break.
No, not at all.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
This would have been fantastic at instant speed, and I think it's all right at sorcery speed. If anything, I mean, it could be a finisher for some like tap out control decks. But in limited, I think this will be a lot of fun, especially in like the blue-green kicker deck.
Yeah.
Kick it. Next up, we have Jace Mirror Mage. He is 1 blue for a legendary planeswalker. He enters the battlefield with 4 loyalty counters. He has Kicker 2. The first time a planeswalker has Kicker. It's crazy. It's too bad he's not Gruul. Hey, Riley?
Yeah.
So when Jace Mirror Mage enters the battlefield, if Jace was kicked, create a token that's a copy of Jace Mirror Mage, except it's not legendary, and its starting loyalty is 1. His +1 is Scry 2, and his 0 is draw a card and reveal it. Remove a number of loyalty counters equal to that card's converted mana cost from Jace Mirror Mage. What if you don't have enough counters on Jace Mirror Mage? Do you still... get
You remove as much as you can, and it dies.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
So if you reveal it, it's like 6 CMC.
Yeah, so you've got a sacrificial illusion.
Like,
Yeah.
bye.
Or the other thing is you can like use the illusion to set up the big Jace to...
Yeah, I don't know which sequence is better, like whether or not you want to use the illusion version to scry and then minus with the bigger version, or if you want to do it the opposite way and just like burn the illusion. But
I think it'll be a case to case. Like if you have like your planeswalker may get attacked or something, like, all right, let's just get rid of the smaller one and just get another card out of it.
yeah, that's fair.
Wasn't there a band that had a song called Use Your Illusion? Do you know of
Maybe.
anything like that, Riley? You're like a Rush fan. I think it's like that like era of music. You know anything about that?
It doesn't ring a bell.
All right. We'll move on then. Next up, we have Lull Mage's Domination. It's X blue for a sorcery. This spell
Guns N'
costs...
Roses.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you did that. I'm surprised Riley didn't know. He's such a huge fan of Rush, and they're basically the same band.
Well, they're a little different.
They're different.
No, I know they're different.
Yeah, they're a little different.
I haven't heard many of either of their songs, so you know. I'm a top 40 guy. Or soundtracks. I also really love soundtracks. Anyways, Lull Mage's Domination is a sorcery. It costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature whose controller has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. So nice and flexible.
Yeah, I like this control magic effect. I think, especially in limited, with a lot of the rogue synergies having mill tacked onto them, being able to enable this and just be able to essentially pay X for the creature's converted mana cost to take control of it, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
You're basically removing their creature and putting it onto your side of the battlefield.
Yeah.
So that is a big swing in a game of limited.
And then also I like seeing this kind of card because I don't think it's too overpowered. Because like if you're you can't cast it for free because then it doesn't work, and you can't just like recur it a bunch of times and stuff. So
Yeah, that's true.
I guess you could take tokens.
You could, absolutely.
Yeah. Like you could, like either way, you're paying 3 mana, like 3 blue mana to use its ability. But do you get to decide what X is, even with that cost reduction?
Don't you?
I believe you would.
Yeah,
right.
I think
You
so.
would be able to steal, like, even if you pay 3 and you have the 3 mana cost reduction, like you would assume X would be 3, but you could choose it to be 0, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have the cost reduction, then X is always like it's between 3 and 0, isn't it?
It's just going to be 3
That's
less to
what
cast.
I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, next up we have Maddening Cacophony. It's 1 and a blue for a sorcery. It has kicker for 3 and a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, instead each opponent mills half their library rounded up. This is going right in Bruvik the Grandiloquent, if I could get my hands on a copy.
For a reasonable price.
Exactly. That's the caveat, for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card definitely looks sweet, and being able to just mill everybody half their libraries.
And that rounded up clause, that's a clear sign of power creep.
Yeah, this is just like stronger than Traumatize.
Yeah.
Because it's each opponent. Like, sure, overall it's 1 mana more than Traumatize. But each opponent, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for 1 more mana, it's it's not even you got no choice now. You have to.
Yeah, you gotta.
So next up we have Master of Winds. It's 2 and 2 blue for a Sphinx Wizard 1/4 with flying. When Master of Winds enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, you may have Master of Winds' base power and toughness become 4/1 or 1/4 until end of turn.
I love this card. It reminds me so much of Mole Drifter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, draw 2, discard a card is like, the discarded card is barely a downside. I'm sure at that point you'll have something to pitch, and that could even be a big upside, especially if you're in some sort of like reanimate strategy, or in some sort of like recurring spell strategy. Yeah, I just love this card. I think like 1/4 being defensive is awesome, but then the ability to switch its power when you need it to by casting an instant or sorcery, or even a wizard spell, just makes this card excellent.
Yeah.
Wizard.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I like a good low cost Sphinx. That's for sure. Just feels right.
Oh yeah,
Just feels
for
right.
sure.
There's not many low cost Sphinxes.
Well, you put it in an Unesh deck and they all get lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd be casting this thing for 2 mana?
Yeah, dog.
Hell yeah.
Next up, we have... I gotta roll down my list here. I'm having too much fun. Next up, we have Ruin Crab. It's 1 blue for a crab, 0/3. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards. So this is just a functional reprint of Hedron Crab. And this card really makes me want to pull my mono blue modern mill deck out of storage and find a place for 4 of these, and once F&M opens back up again, just go down there with this deck and just go 0-4 with it.
So not quite a functional reprint. There's a few differences. This crab doesn't actually target, and it's each opponent. So you don't have the flexibility of choosing yourself. And Hedron Crab's actually a 0/2.
So it's better.
It depends on your strategy, but yeah, like they definitely pair well. Like if that's the strategy you're going for, like 8 crab in modern, do it.
I think I'm going to.
The modern mill decks are just going to have 8 crabs now, and you have the other Maddening Cacophony to add as well. There's a lot of cool mill cards that have been printed just recently, so...
Yeah.
To an explorer, a priceless treasure. To the crab, a rock to call home.
Oh,
I like the flavor text better on Hedron Crab. It's like something like Hedron's perplex minds both large and small, or something like that, and it's like a Hedron Crab.
That is exactly it.
As a Hedron.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Both great and small.
And the things I remember, it's incredible. How useless the information is. Okay, next up we have Seagate Restoration. It is another flip card. It's 4 blue for a sorcery. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. On the other side, Seagate Reborn. As it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a blue. So it's one of these mythic bolt lands. The art on the Seagate Reborn kind of reminds me of something from Halo. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty dope.
I also love these cards that if you just cast them, you just have no max hand size for the rest of the game. So it's not like a permanent you have out that's giving it to you.
It's like an emblem. It's like, what are you supposed to, as an opponent, what are you supposed to do about that? You're like, okay, I guess I can't do anything about that. Let's keep playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine, guys. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
I'll just hold on to these cards. Don't worry. This card is fantastic. I love this cycle of cards so much. Just like the flexibility of being able to play a land or play like a crazy bomb of a spell in the late game is just like I think it's everything you'd want in a card.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Magic has finally plateaued. They don't need to keep going. We'll just
Our work here is done.
Mic drop.
Next up, we have Seagate Stormcaller. It's 1 and a blue for a human wizard 2/1. It has kicker for 4 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, copy the next instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 2 or less. You cast this turn when you cast it. If Seagate Stormcaller was kicked, copy that spell twice instead. You may choose new targets for the copies. Whew, it's a lot of power.
Oh yeah,
It's pretty cool.
this card's great.
Yeah, I really do like it. It's as close as what we're going to get to like a Snapcaster Mage kind of cards. So I obviously love this one right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, just love like playing a cantrip, getting 2 cards out of it.
Yeah, like playing this and then opt. I feel good. Just getting 1 extra kicker for 5 more mana seems like a little too much, but
Well, you never know, right? Like it's all about flexibility. I don't think this card is broken on, it doesn't make or break the card
No.
based around the kicker ability,
no,
right?
not at all.
Like this
I just-
card's pretty good on its face, but just like in the late game, late game, if you need that extra bit of oomph, then you have that flexibility.
yeah,
Yeah,
especially
and
the kicker was
makes
cheaper.
kicker
This
so
field
great.
with 5, you're barely ever going to be kicking this card.
Yeah, you
I
never
want to
know.
kick
I
it
mean,
more.
it's just like you're not going to be using kicker until the late game in many cases. So it just depends.
Yeah.
It just depends how it all comes out in the wash. Next up, we have another flip card. It's Salundi Vision. Salundi, it's 2 and a blue for an instant. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And the other side is Salundi Isle. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a blue.
Yeah, this is great if you're like holding up a counter spell or something, and then you don't have anything to counter. You're like, well, I'll just go get another spell and cast this at your opponent's end step. This card's great.
Yeah, or you just want to, curve out with land drops.
Yeah,
Play it turn 1.
totally.
Yeah, I think these cards are fantastic, and I'm going to keep saying that, especially in limited. Like these cards are incredible.
Yeah.
Just being able to take a land slot, and have that flexibility later on in the game of being able to dig for something more useful, or, in some cases, be a creature, be a threat. It's just incredibly powerful. It's like a cycling land that does more than just draw a card.
Next up, we have Thieving Skydiver. It's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Rogue. It has kicker X, and they specify that X can't be 0. It has flying. When Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydiver. That last clause is pretty nuts.
That's so cool.
Just adding insult to injury.
This card is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I know there's a bunch of people out there talking about like historic hammer time with this and another instant speed spell that attaches an equipment to a warrior you control. But just being able to play this on turn 3 and attach like Colossus Hammer for the memes is going to be worth it.
Well, yeah, because like you don't need to gain control of, like you can choose your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But even just in Commander, being able to play this for 3 mana and steal somebody's Soul Ring, like that's backbreaking.
Seems
That's
pretty
incredible.
good.
Oh yeah, or like
Yeah.
steal their, like one of their swords. That can also really turn the tide.
A sword
For sure.
or a mana crypt or
Yeah.
Yeah.
arcane
I love that
signet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love it that it's not just equipment, it's target artifact, and then they have the if clause for equipment. Like it's just a fantastic card.
Yeah. Okay, we are moving on to black. The first card we have here is a flip card. It's Agadeem's Awakening. It's X, black, black, black for a sorcery. Return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that each have a different converted mana cost, X or less. And the flip side is Agadeem the Undercrypt. As it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a black.
So this is a super sweet card. Obviously, even if you're doing some sort of reanimator, like for 6 mana, you're getting back 3 creatures, a 1, a 2, and a 3 CMC from your graveyard. Like, that's just really powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, that part's all right. Like, we saw Gruesome Menagerie in Standard for quite a long time, and of course in Commander, like that was printed in, I think, Guild of Ravnica. And it did basically that exact same effect you just described. It was very mediocre. But if you don't like it, play it as a land. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it powerful.
But we didn't have the Rakdos sacrifice is very powerful right now. And I think this is really good for that kind of style, which really wasn't around when Gruesome Menagerie was around, right?
Gruesome Menagerie is still technically in Standard until it rotates.
Oh, that's
Zendikar Rising.
Oh yeah, you have a good point.
Yeah, I think the power in this card is that it can take up a land slot and will most likely be played as a land.
But you have that chance.
Like in the off chance in the late game or in a weird situation, you need that very situational recursion. Then you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Just give me that chance. Next up, we have another flip card. It's Black Bloom Rogue. It's 2 and a black for a 2/3 human rogue with menace. Black Bloom, rogue gets +3/+0 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand. And the flip side is, of course, a land that taps for black and it enters the battlefield tapped. Black Bloom Bog.
It's cards in graveyard.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, just clarifying. But yeah, obviously if you're running a mill deck, this is like a 5/3 for 3 mana. With menace. With menace.
Yeah, no real downside there.
Not at all.
I mean, obviously you need to enable it, but if you're not quite there and you need a land drop, well, guess what? You can play it as a land.
You got that land. It's good stuff.
This thing is a freaking bomb. Like, in Limited especially. At Uncommon, you're going to see this more often than a Rare, of course, but man, I could easily see, obviously depending on how the Limited format shakes out, but this is just a bomb. I think these cards are going to be picked highly, and this one is just one of the best.
All these tap lands are also going to add to the grindiness of this Limited format potentially, I think.
Potentially. I mean, it really depends how aggressive it ends up being. Because it looks like there is some support for aggressive decks, like in green red and white green as well, with some of the landfall abilities that trigger and pump up your creatures. But there is also a lot of grindy cards and grindy strategies that seem to be present in this format. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Next up, we have Blood Chief's Thirst. It's 1 black for a sorcery. It has kicker for 2 and a black. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less. If this spell was kicked, instead destroy target creature or planeswalker.
So this is really cool because this is like they were looking at Fatal Push and how good Fatal Push was. And so this is kind of like an iteration of that. Of course, you're paying mana instead of having something go away. But we do have the clause of it being anything instead of it just being 4 or less as well. So I think this is a pretty good card.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, this is premium removal for if you're playing Limited. So.
Oh yeah, like for sure. Like 4 mana for a kill spell, like is a good rate to begin with in Limited. But even in Constructed, I could see this being really great as just like a flexible card in your deck against aggro or a more controlling strategy. Like being able to pick off one of their early game threats for 1 mana is huge. And then in the late game for control, like if they slam a big planeswalker or a big threat, this is going to be a card that has that flexibility.
Heck yeah.
That's what you could call a really big person. Like, hey, you're a big planeswalker, right? Because we're all just planeswalkers, right? Anyways, not to
I
be
wish
too
I could planeswalk.
not to be too indelicate.
You guys can planeswalk?
Don't tell him about it, Riley.
Okay.
The next card we have here is Coveted Prize. It's 4 and a black for sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. If you have a full party, you may cast a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Ooh.
Yeah, this is spicy.
So again, tutors are usually around like the 4 or 5 mana cost in a standard set. So that seems to be pretty on par. It'll be really interesting to see again, the viability of getting a full party and being able to cast a 4 or less CMC card from your hand for free. So
I want to build a tribal deck in Commander.
What?
Using so you got to think of it in reverse. You use a bunch of changelings or creatures that have a ton of different creature types, and then you use a bunch of really powerful buffs that affect a certain tribe, and depending on the flavor of the day, your changelings are going to be a bird and birds get whatever buff, or they're going to be a horse and they get whatever kind of buff. But at the end of the day, as long as you have 4 changelings on the battlefield, this is like a demonic tutor for 1 that also casts a card with CMC 4 or less. So that's really powerful.
Yeah, it's just that deck doesn't sound very powerful.
Yeah.
No, it does not. It sounds like the perfect balance of a really powerful effect with a jank result. And that's exactly the kind of deck I like to play.
Yeah, we know it. Well, when you put that together, I would love to deck-explain it on the show, because that sounds like just some good, clean fun.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Deadly Alliance. It's 4 and a black for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Just a solid piece of removal, even for 5 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, just straight up removal, but if we do have the party mechanic, casting this for 3 even would be really good.
Yeah.
And it's a common too, so seeing it more in limited.
Next up, we have Durana, the Last Blood Chief, for 3 and 2 black. She's a 4/4 legendary creature, vampire cleric, so she's going to be in those party decks. She has flying. Whenever Durana, the Last Blood Chief, attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. The creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. Very flavorful.
Very flavorful. Also, Durana is always powerful. The last printing of her was really good, and this one's really good too.
Mm-hmm.
I love Durana.
Yeah, she's good stuff. This is really cool too, because it also reminds me of he's a Delver.
Oh, Tassiger?
Yeah, Tassiger. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Tassiger ability. He looks for instant sorceries. This is making your opponent look for a creature. So really cool stuff. I like it a lot.
I always like those effects where you're getting your opponent involved in what you're doing. You're like, here, you choose from these bad choices, and I want to see how skilled of a Magic player you actually are.
Yeah, it's what bad decision would you like to make today?
Yeah. So next up, we had Feed the Swarm. It's 1 and a black for sorcery. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost. So we have enchantment removal in black, and it's on color because you lose life. You're losing life. Yeah, I know. It's red letter day right here. Who says 2020's been all bad, hey?
Yeah.
This seems great. It is sorcery speed, so obviously not as powerful as an instant, but that flexibility of being able to kill... I don't know. What would you rather have? A disenchant or a Feed the Swarm? Right?
Yeah.
The flexibility of hitting an enchantment or an artifact, or a creature or an enchantment.
Well, I think artifacts are more in Commander. I think artifacts are more abundant, permanent type, but enchantments are more difficult to remove and are in many cases as problematic as artifacts.
Yeah, I mean, creatures are more abundant than artifacts.
No, I just mean
Right.
that between artifacts
Yeah.
and enchantments.
Yeah,
I think
for
in
sure.
Commander I would have the former, but if I was playing in like Limited or something, Feed the Swarm I think is great because you're going to run into people that don't have
Oh, no doubt.
one of the two, but creatures, you're always going to have an opponent who has creatures, so
Yeah, that's why Disenchant isn't on our set review list in white.
yeah.
But yes, very cool card, and it's just making history. Zendikar Rising already hasn't even been released. Okay, next up we have another flip card. It's Hagra Mauling for 2 and 2 black. It's an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if an opponent controls non-basic lands. No, sorry. This spell costs 1
No.
less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands. Destroy target creature.
Yeah.
And the flip side is...
Tisk.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, tisk opponent. You're playing no basic lands.
Yeah, you're getting ruinationed. The flip side is Hagra Brood Pit. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap it for a black mana.
You know what? You could destroy all of your opponent's lands. I mean, technically, they would have no basic lands at that point.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're right.
I think I kind of like, even though I know this one is a land, I think I still like the Blood Chief's Thirst better as a card.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, like I think they both have
Like, I guess if you're like, hey,
different role playing. Yeah.
yeah, like this is taking up a land slot, so I don't have to play a land now. I'm doing this instead. And
Yeah.
late,
Obviously, you can't
late game,
get
it's
too
removal.
greedy.
With
You can't
that.
get too greedy with the modal double face cards because, of course, they are for the most part tapped lands.
Yeah, you don't want all your lands being tap lands because then you're a turn behind again.
But like toss one of these in there as an, like a tapped land and removal spell when you need it, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Nope.
Alrighty then. Next up we have Inscription of Ruin. It's 2 and a black for sorcery. It has kicker for 2 and 2 black. Choose one. If the spell is kicked, choose any number instead. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Return target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less.
Here comes the ruination.
This one I'm pretty meh on, honestly. Like, even 7 mana for all of this is like kind of
It just feels
medium.
real restrictive on the CMCs.
Definitely.
That's
yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, I think don't get me wrong. Like, if I would first pick this in limited,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where it ends.
That's about it. Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
like I could play the blue inscription in Commander or something, but this one's just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, it just and in a format like that, especially casual Commander, the games are longer. This is just going to get less and less and less impactful
Yeah,
as the game goes on. Next up, we have Lithoform Blight. It's 1 and a black for an aura, enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted land loses all land types and abilities and has tap to add a colorless to your mana pool, and tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So just like that Conundrum card, Confounding Conundrum, this replaces itself, which I am totally on board with, and it removes problem lands without completely destroying them, which I think will really help with the overall saltiness in a game of Commander. And even the filtering part, it's not like you have to pay mana, you only have to pay life, so that also helps with the saltiness. So I think this is just like a good in those scenarios, I think it's good from like a political perspective. It's like an arcane denial version of land destruction.
Yeah, I actually never thought of putting it on your opponent's land.
yeah. It is. It can be used for fixing as well, right?
Yeah.
Like in a pinch, especially in limited. Like, I mean, you're going to see it relatively often. It isn't uncommon, but if if you're getting greedy with like a 5-color party deck, you need that fixing.
Yeah, I thought this was a great fixing card, and especially because it replaces itself as well. Mm-hmm. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen similar effects, and they've been like pretty medium, but usually those effects are in green, and green has other ways of like ramping and fixing its mana with land-based ramp. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Also, the story spotlight seems really interesting. Heedless of Nissa's warnings, Nahiri repeated history. Oh boy. Uh-oh.
Yeah, they kind of have a rivalry going on. And if you want to find out more about that, go back and listen to the episode we did with our editor, Ainsley Eldrazi Explained. I think it's somewhere in the 40s, but you'll find it. You're smart.
Yeah, you can even see Hedrons in the background, too.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Next up, we have Mind Carver. It's 1 black for an equipment. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. It gets +3/+1 instead, as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, and the equip cost is 2 and a black.
Oh yeah,
pretty good for the whole Millen strategy stuff. So giving something +3/+1 for 1 mana. Ooh.
Yeah, Dimir Rogues is probably going to like this.
Ooh, yeah.
Looks like a lot of fun. Especially in Constructed. I mean, like, Rogues might be a thing in Constructed. I guess, especially as the format starts to shake out once a rotation happens, there's quite a bit of Rogue support, and the Rogues tend to like to mill people. So
yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that all of these are like 8 or more, so if you just cast 1 Maddening Cacophony for 2 mana, you activate all of these cards that are 8 or more cards in a graveyard.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting design space to think about, like, mill as an aggressive tactic.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily like turbo mill, like trying to get all the cards out of your opponent's deck, but use it as a way to get them, like, to essentially threshold and buff up your creatures or give your creatures an additional effect.
Next up, we have Nighthawks Scavenger. Shout out to our buddy Trev. He loves this card. Yeah. It's 1 and 2 black for a 1+*3 Vampire Rogue. It has Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. Nighthawk Scavenger's power is equal to 1+ the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. Yeah, this is just a way better Vampire Nighthawk. And I like his little spiked feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if I put it on the list, or it was definitely on my list. I know that for sure. But as soon as I saw this spoiled, I thought of Trev, because I've tried to convince him that Vampire Nighthawk is not as good in Commander as he thinks it is. But this is almost a strictly better version than Vampire Nighthawk.
So now his Commander decks with black in them are now effectively like 96 card decks, because he has Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Vampire Nighthawk, and this card.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
All right, next up we have Null Priest of Oblivion. It's 1 and a black for a 2/1 Vampire Cleric with Kicker. The Kicker cost is 3 and a black. It has Menace and Lifelink. When Null Priest of Oblivion enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's a pretty awesome effect for 6 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, and like at the very least, it's a 2 mana 2/1 with Menace and Lifelink. Like, if you're trying to curve out with this card, it's great. And if you top deck it in the late game and want to get back a bomb from your graveyard that was previously removed, like, sign me up. This card's great.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Scourge of the Sky Claves. It's 1 and a black for a star demon. It has Kicker for 4 and a black. When you cast this spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life, rounded up. Scourge of the Sky Claves' power and toughness are each equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players.
So I know I mentioned this before, but this is the card I was thinking that is another threat in the old Death Shadow deck.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Modern people are usually hitting themselves, so you should be able to play this out, at least like as a 2/2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then if you're getting damage through, it just gets bigger and bigger. Because you're going to have a lower life total, obviously, from getting your Death Shadows up there. And then it's like if your opponent's not a 10, like it's a 10-10 already.
Yeah.
It's another card in the long line of cards that you think would have flying, but don't have flying.
Right?
Well, it doesn't have any wings.
Yeah, it's called Scourge of the Sky Claves. And like, look at it. Look at the demon.
Maybe it can.
How does it not have wings? It's like
Look at the
all
demon.
webbed and stuff.
Yeah, look at it. Maybe it can just jump really high.
I guess. I don't know.
Then give it reach.
Yeah, those are freakishly long legs, eh?
Yeah,
But
they're
it's
weird.
in the sky.
Yeah, that is. I think that might be a bit of a flavor miss.
Yeah, a little weird. But interestingly enough, the way it's templated, if it's in your graveyard or anywhere really in any zone, it's going to be counting its power and toughness. So if it's in your graveyard and you're running Nethroi from Ikoria,
yeah.
it's actually subtracting, like, you know, say an opponent's at 40, the highest life total's at 40. So it's a -20, -20. It's actually subtracting the total power from Nethroi's trigger. So you'd be able to return, like, usually it would be up to 10 power worth of creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield, but you'd then minus, or I guess plus 20 in this case. So you'd be able to return up to 30 power of creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield.
Really?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow. Secret
Yeah.
tech.
Whoa.
Secret tech.
Nice.
Pretty spicy
no
stuff
kidding.
there.
Oh my goodness. All right, so next up we have Shadow's Verdict. It's 3 black for a sorcery. Exile all creatures and planeswalkers with converted mana cost 3 or less from the battlefield, and all creature and planeswalker cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from all graveyards. Get out of here.
This is a pretty neat wrath. Like, I know it only hits CMC 3 or less, but the fact that it hits the graveyards as well, for any of those, like, shenanigans going on, you can just say bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, Felicia.
Yeah, no, it's totally that extra clause does make it a little bit more playable for sure.
Yeah, kills Uro no matter where he is.
Yeah, get those Uros out of here.
I don't know. I don't know how sold I am on Shadow's Verdict, but I think I'd still run Extinction Event over this.
Oh, that's the one from Ikoria where you choose odd or even?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that card. Next up, we have Soul Shatter. It's 2 and a black for an instant. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among creatures and planeswalkers they control.
Now,
Yeah.
this reminds me a lot of Crackling Doom. Do you guys remember Crackling Doom?
Yeah, that's
do.
the Mardu card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mardu card, 3 converted mana cost as well. Basically does the same thing. I think it also does 2 damage to each opponent.
It does.
Which is like whatever in Commander. Like
All the
2
damage
I
adds
guess,
up,
is-
man.
Yeah, don't attack
Yeah,
for 1 at the beginning of the game. I didn't do anything.
I'm gonna get you.
I didn't do anything to you.
Oh, those are the days. But the fact that this can also hit a big planeswalker is pretty big. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, it is. I love all like the creature and planeswalker text on all these cards. You know, because like they're a problem.
They are.
We got to solve it.
Let's solve this problem.
Next up, we have Taberax Hope's Demise. It's 2 and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature, demon cleric with flying. It has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Taberax. If that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card. If you do, you lose 1 life. Well, who's not going to draw a card for the 1 life? Like, that's not even would have, a card is way more valuable than 1 life. Come on. Now he has flying, which,
He has flying. And look at those big wings.
Yeah, look at him. Yeah.
But what if he didn't?
That would be even more of a flavor fail. Yes.
Yeah, I could see this being in like supporting like in the 99 of like a Shadowborn Apostles kind of deck. Man, like imagine sacrificing 6 Shadowborn Apostles to go get this and have like a loop where you can get back your Shadowborn Apostles and then just like start drawing a bunch of cards and tutoring out a bunch of demons. Like that would be fun.
Yeah, that's pretty greasy. I like that.
Yeah, it's the one spot where it's good.
I mean, you could build mono black clerics, and I'm sure you know who knows. There seems to be a lot of tribal synergies going on, so you might even be able to do like an Orzhov clerics deck with the other legendary Orzhov creature that cares about clerics with CMC 3 or less dying and bringing back something with lesser converted mana cost back to the battlefield. Probably get some fun loops going with there.
I do have to say the demon cleric creature type is a very interesting one, where we have this demon with a staff, but he also has like a bloody right hand.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a blood cleric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evil clerics
Evil
are
clerics,
a thing.
Yeah.
And next up, we have Thwart the Grave. It's 4 black for a sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Return target creature card and up to 1 target cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Oh yeah.
Need that full party.
Got to reassemble the party sometimes.
Yeah, great party support. I mean, even getting like a couple pips reduced to, have like a 4 mana like reanimation spell that brings back 2 creatures. That's pretty spicy. This is another piece for my tribal deck.
There you go. Are you going to make like Morophon the commander or something?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Because then I can choose which creature. I could choose like Squirrel, and then all my changelings are like benefited by squirrels.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's we're about an hour 20 now. I think that's a good place to wrap things up for this week. As any place, talking about Riley's tribal deck. And next week we'll hopefully be able to get through red, green, gold, colorless, and lands. I think we'll be able to. I think we have the power. And with that, we're gonna bring this episode to a close. Yeah, let us know if we missed any cards that you're excited for. Let us know in the comments or email us wherever you listen. Of course, thank you for listening as always, and thank you to our editor Ainsley. We hope you've enjoyed having her on the show. The last, she's been on the show. You can find me on Instagram at Command Beacon, and Riley's also on social media. Riley, where can folks see you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at RilesDayton, or you can find me on Instagram at Riley_Dayton.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll be wrapping this up next week, and then we'll probably be getting into the commander decks at that point. All right. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you all later.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Keep things beeping and booping.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, beep, boop.
That's the technical term. Yes.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.